Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Classes and Objects. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to encapsulate state and behavior with classes, and this one's a little bit more of a wish. I hope you'll be able to define class and object. We weren't able to get there in the last class, but smaller group, and I believe in you. Let's talk about this first objective, encapsulating state and behavior with classes. Yeah?
Can I just before we get started?
Yeah.
You mentioned in standout yesterday, some lessons are for taking notes and some are following.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for this one? Just watching? Or?
I'll tell you what to do. So you can take notes during this part. I'm going to ask you to stop taking notes in a second.
Okay.
And then we're going to get hands-on with some stuff. Good question. Anything else before we leave the station? All right. Off to the learning factory. So first objective, encapsulating state and behavior with classes. Imagine, let's flash back to Tuesday. We're working on that dog and owner problem. Let's make it a little simpler. Let's say one dog has, one owner has many dogs. All right. Now let's think about how we'd represent this in code. We could do something like dog name equals Bixby. You do something like dog age equals 30. The other class was very disturbed by how late in the game I left this. Bixby's been dead for a very long time. But we have dog age. We might have dog city. Okay, cool. Now what happens when I have more than one dog? How do I incorporate that? Could. I could do arrays of hashes. That'd be a totally legit way to do it. It's actually how we do it in JavaScript. How else? How else could I do that? Classes are our preferred solution. We're trying to figure out what classes save us from. So it keeps us from having arrays of hashes. What else? How else could we get Mesa involved here? How about something like dog 1 name, dog 2 name, dog 2 city, and then we do, this should have been ones. Dog 1 age, dog 1 city, and then dog 2 name is Mesa. Ugh. That gets out of control really fast. So, much better if I can bundle all of the things that a dog is together. So, I start by defining the shape of a dog. I say the dog is something with a name, an age, and a city. Those are things like a dog is. You can also keep the things that a dog does together. So maybe it's got a method called bark. Things that it is, things that it does, all together in one beautiful package. So if that's the shape of a dog, then an actual dog would be Bixby, who has a name, an age, a city, and whenever Bixby barks, it's a weird dog, he says, my name is Bixby. Class, object. Cookie cutter, cookie. Blueprint, building.
So dog is not the class.
Dog is the class. Dog is the class, Bixby's the object.
And name, age, city are also the class.
No, name, age, city are properties of that class.
Is the word shape the one that you use when you refer to the properties and methods within a class? You say the class is shape?
Correct. Yeah, it's like we're kind of abstractly defining in code what a dog is. We'd say all of that is the shape of a dog. And so every dog has the same shape, even though like parts of that might be slightly different. We do know that every dog has a bark method, even though the bark method might do different things. Great question. What else? Yeah.
Is there a difference in terminology between using the word, like the fact that name, age, and city are all properties as opposed to attributes?
For you, right now, on day 3, you can use those interchangeably. There is a difference between them, but don't worry about it. Property is the correct name for something that's in a class, but the difference between a property and attributes pretty damn academic and arbitrary.
And
Cool.
What you say bark was, it's like a what it does or a method? Or
Method.
Got it.
Method's the technical term. More broadly, called its behavior. Called the things that it is, its state. The things that it does, its behavior. If you're at a party for lame people and someone's like, I heard you were talking about classes. Well, they encapsulate state and behavior. Properties, methods, state, behavior. And more questions before we get hands on. All right. Let's encapsulate some state and behavior. So for this part, I do not want you to take notes. I want you to watch. You'll get a chance to do this yourself imminently. So I just did dogs in the last one. Let's do cats in this one. So we're going to call this kitty daycare. I don't think such a thing exists, but whatever. So I'm going to make an empty folder called kitty daycare. Then I'm going to cd into that folder ls, nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve. I'm going to touch cat.rb. And if I open up cat.rb, come on now, oops. Oh, I see why that happened. Kitty daycare. If I go into cat.rb and type class cat end, that's it. I've made it doesn't do anything, doesn't have any state, doesn't have any behavior, but I've made a cookie cutter. Made a cat file, put class cat end. Next, I'm going to make an environment file. Environment.rb. When I open that up, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to require in pry, that's what's going to let us play around with this. I'm going to call binding.pry, and I'm going to require the cat that I just made. Neat. Now what I can do is I can type Ruby environment RB, and then when we wait forever for this to load, I'll have access to that class, and I can instantiate or make instances of that class. So I can say something like whiskers equals cat.new, and I have a new cat. Questions about the thing that I just did?
So after you like did the touch cat RB and touch environment to create them,
Mm-hmm.
how did you like go into them then?
So I created them, and then I opened them up in my text editor. Anytime you see me use Vim anything, you can just swap that out with code. This is just a text editor like anything else. And you see these little, like, I don't think I talked about this on Tuesday. These little things at the bottom, these are just different terminals. So if you have tabs in your terminals or something, it's identical. Good question. What else? Yeah, Miriam.
When we did the binding pry,
Mm-hmm.
and then went back to, I guess, the terminal to do things, why bother creating a new cat with in a binding.pry? Why not just create the cat and the cat to RB?
Because we're playing around with it.
Okay.
We could. That's fine. Yeah.
When you require cat, do you need to specify the directory that way?
You do. So if I do this, it's going to look for a Ruby gem called cat. If I'm bringing in a file, I have to do it like that. Super important distinction.
But you don't have the $RB out there.
I don't. Any guesses why? It won't be mad at you if you do this, but any guesses why we don't need it ever?
It's just looking for the beginning of the string or the file.
That's a good guess. It's even simpler than that.
Because if you're asking for it, it assumes you mean it's the same thing.
It's because it's the only thing we can require is Ruby files. So if that's the only thing that we can bring in, it just assumes the RB. I can't require in a JavaScript file. I can't require in an image. So don't have to have the extension. That's the case in a lot of languages, by the way. Cool. What else? So I made a cat file. I put a class in there. I required pry. I required that file. And I called binding.pry. And then when I ran Ruby environment RB, I can make cats willy-nilly. I can say this one's mittens, and now I've got whiskers and mittens. Ta-da! So what I want you to do now is I want you to try to do the things that I just did from memory. You might not get all the way there. That's okay. I just want you to wrestle with it for a sec. So I made a cat file. I put a cat class in it. I made an environment file. I put pry and the cat file in it. And then I ran the environment and made a cat. We're going to do this again together, but I want 2 minutes. I want you to see how much of this you can do from scratch. One thing I learned from the previous class, though, there's a pretty good chance you need to run gem install pry. If you have never done this, it will be very upset with you. But you only need to do it once, and you'll have pry for the rest of your time here. All right, 2 minutes on the clock. See if you can follow these steps. Go. Yes.
I don't know multiple tabs.
Like what you think.
has similar property conditions?
No. Yeah, please.
I can't figure out how to rename my file. So I went to Google.
Okay.
Here's how, that's two words,
Okay.
select files.
Sure. So,
Select.
do a control click on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Save as. It hasn't named anything yet.
That's true. What I should do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there a way to make a new directory, without doing it in the terminal?
Not a good way. Do it in the terminal. There's a lot of this stuff that in the terminal feels slow now. It's not. Like, if you have to go through the GUI and like create file, it'll take forever when you're up to speed. So slow down now so you can speed up later. Okay, so regardless of how far you got, I want you to stop. And we're going to do all of this together. So I am going to get rid of everything I just did. All right, back to basics. So follow along with me this time. MKDIR. If you didn't want to get rid of the folder or whatever, call this one cat dash daycare. Makes a new folder. We cd into it. Cool. And then we're going to make a cat file. So we're going to touch cat. I'd recommend using a capital C .rb. That makes the file. In the text editor, which if you have it open there, awesome. Otherwise, you could do code cat rb. Any of those things are fine. Yep, stop. Run away. Cat daycare. I want you to open up that cat rb file and type class cat with a capital C. This one needs to be a capital C. And just like that. So we put a cat class in our cat file. Now we're going to make an environment file. So we touch environment.rb. We open up that file, and we're supposed to put pry and the cat file in it. We do that with require pry binding.pry, and then in between those, we're going to do require ./cat. So we've done those. Now we run the environment file, which we do by typing ruby environment rb. Then our last step is making a cat, which we're going to do with cat.new. So we say whiskers equals cat.new, and we're in class and object land, baby. So generally around this point, at least one of you is awash in errors. So how are we doing? Got a thumbs up? Thumbs up? All right. Like I said, one of the 600 times.
Am I supposed to type on the terminal?
No, you're supposed to So,
Question, Kyle?
yep.
Why is in your file cat is capitalized and environment is not?
Great question, because cat is a class, and in almost every language, classes start with capital letters.
Okay,
And so,
the whole file exists, because their cat is a file,
Mhm.
so the whole file exists solely for the purpose of creating an instance of a class, and so the file gets, okay.
100% correct, all the way through. So, this is the thing that happened in the last group also. If I change something in this file, pay very close attention to the top here. So I have that, I delete something. See how the little plus showed up? On your terminals, it's a circle. That means you've made a change and you haven't saved it yet. So that's thing number one that you're going to trip on about 20 times this week. Gotta save the files. There's plugins that'll auto-save for you. I don't mind if you use them. I generally don't, though. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is, let's say I'm running this right now. I can make new cats just fine. Awesome. Uh-oh. What happens when I delete this file and save it and try to make a new cat? Any guesses what's going to happen? Error or no error? Error?
Nowhere, because it already got itself there.
Cool. Fight, 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 fight. No error. Once we run that file, it's not watching for changes in real time or anything. Whatever the files were when it ran the first time, that's what we got. So if I kill it and start it again with my cat file removed, I'm so glad that the company is keeping me safe by making simple operations take so long. And now I try to make a cat. What's a cat? I put the cat back in. All right, I put it back in. Still don't know what a cat is. Kill it, start it again. I can make cats again.
Where is that being stored when you create your, well, you're probably getting there.
Where's mittens being stored?
Yeah. Mittens and
The technical answer is in your RAM. And then as soon as we kill the program, it all goes away. Cool. Other questions so far? Yeah, Miriam.
Yeah, so when I run fry in the terminal, like, yeah, I guess I'm getting that same uninitialized constant cat. But,
Mhm.
you know, what, I have it in the environment, I have it called correctly into my,
Cool. This is the other thing I want to talk about. I want you to watch very closely on the left-hand side of the screen. Right now, I'm in Bash land. I can do things like ls and pwd and touch and mcdir and cd. Those are all bash commands. Watch what happens on the left-hand side of the screen when I run Ruby environment RB. Totally different. This is expecting Ruby stuff. If I type ls in here, don't know what you're talking about, bro. pwd, never heard of it. cd, But I can do 1+1. I can do cat.new. I can do Ruby things, but I can't do bash things. I get out of that. I try to 1+1. Doesn't know what I'm talking about. So yep. Okay, so now we got this. So we got a syntax error. Let me see your environment file. Looks good. Looks good. Let me see your cat file. Class is lowercase c, cat is uppercase c. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Awesome. So we can make cookies with a cookie cutter. Now we need to figure out how we get this other stuff in here. Next step. Those methods that you've been making with like def and end and stuff, you can also do them inside classes. So we can say def initialize. And what this method does, this is what runs every time you call .new. Initialize is a magic word in this case. You can't call it a nit, you can't call it I, you can't call it anything else. It has to be very specifically initialized. But when you call .new, that's what it's looking for. To prove it, I can say something like age equals 30 in here. When I run this file and make a new cat, we're going to see something different this time. So I do cat.new. Now I'm keeping track of something. If I save that, bonkers, every time I look at bonkers, I see bonkers' age. Okay, but if I don't want to hard code it to 30, I probably want to like pass it in. So what if I do name this time? I could do it like this, or the way that almost all parentheses in Ruby are optional, which Ruby people take a lot of advantage of. So they usually write it like that. Now, since it's a method, I can pass something in and I can save it with that cat object that I made. So I do that, kill this, I run this, and now when I make Whiskers, I'm going to pass Whiskers' name in. So I make a new cat, and if I try to do it like this, any guesses what happens?
It comes back in there, it says one of arguments.
I was expecting an argument, and you didn't give me one. So need to pass in Whiskers there, or since Ruby people are allergic to parentheses, like that. And now, dope, I'm storing Whiskers' name. Now, that doesn't do me a whole lot of good right off the bat, though, because I can't do anything with it. If I try to get whiskers.name, undefined method name, womp womp. So the way we get around that is we make another method. We call it name. And we return at name. Now, another Ruby thing, the last line of every method is always returned. So we actually don't need that word. When I do this, and I make a new cat, now, meow, I can get that cat's name. So there's Whiskers. Yep. Ah, come on, man. Oh, too far down the rabbit hole. No. What am I doing? No, I'm back in doggy daycare. I can't go back to jail, man. Can't take it. Cat daycare. Proofy environment RB. I ain't going back to that cat prison, man. Stupid Mac keyboards. All right, so now when I make Whiskers, hey Whiskers, what's your name? Whiskers. And since that's a string, I can do all the other shit that I can do with a string. I can do whiskers.name.length. 8 characters. And that's how these two things we've been learning collide together. We can also store arrays in objects. We can do eaches and maps and selects and all that kind of shit over them. Classes and objects are a way of organizing all of these different things that we're trying to do. One last thing. Let's say I've got age and city and whatever else. I do city, age, at city, city, at age is age. All right, well, if I want to read those, I got to make methods for those too. Suck. What if I had a dozen of these? Super repetitive. This line and these 10 are identical. This is called a macro. Any of you do like macros in video games or Word, spreadsheets, anything like that? Exact same thing. I see this and I go, macro, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, and it's just like you typed all this out. Questions so far?
Yeah. So in the previous thing that we did in the terminal, where we did the previous try,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that we did was set whiskers equal to cat.new at whiskers. Why do we need to do that? Why do we have whiskers twice, right?
Great question. Killer question. So let's go back to the drawing. Bixby, Bixby. This Bixby is the label for all of this. I could have called it B also, or my dog, or dog one, or something like that. Happened to name it the same as the dog's name, but I can't, but shouldn't read the name of a variable and use that for any kind of meaningful thing. It's a placeholder.
The first whiskers is a placeholder?
I would like you to make a new cat with the name Whiskers, and I want you to save the reference to that in a variable called Whiskers. Could have also named this variable W without changing anything.
Okay.
Done w.name and gotten Whiskers back.
Okay.
You can think of this is Whiskers' name. This is a property of that object. That is an innate part of who Whiskers is. This is a variable name. This is just how we're keeping track of it in our application. They happen to be the same, but they don't have to be. Cool, now I'm going to put you on the spot. Explain that back to me. How come, I'm asking Miriam, how come I'm using Whiskers twice there?
So the first whiskers is just a variable name as a way to keep track of the idea that we've created a new cat at the name whiskers. So I would have named it maybe like cat1, so I could say cat1 is always named whiskers.
Totally.
And then you use cat1 to call its name or its length or whatever it is that you want to do.
Indeed. Outstanding explanation. Other questions about what we've done so far?
Alright, so I asked it earlier, but I just am not sure. So like, we're storing all these, like whiskers, we're
Mhm.
storing it within the class cat, even though it doesn't like visually store it for us, but it's just within that class right now.
Pause. We're not storing Whiskers in the class.
We're creating a property.
We're creating an object from this class. Keep asking a question. Keep going. I was just tweaking your language on that.
Oh.
So we made a new cat from the cat class, and you had a question about how it's stored?
Well, yeah, it's just weird. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, what? How do you like use it when it's not written in the actual code? Like, it's only within the terminal that like it's. Does that make sense?
Think of it this way. Cool. 5 plus 5 times 50. Ah, cool. Got it. What happened with all the stuff that I just entered?
You didn't really do anything.
Exactly. That's the kind of applications we're making in Mod 1. Now, when we start talking about databases and stuff, that's how we like get your last 5 calculations, have a database of dogs that you can share with people, like that kind of stuff. The stuff we're doing in this lesson is a lot more like the calculator.
Okay.
Miriam.
I think it's first.
Okay, Finn, hit me.
How come we have to have the whole environment file instead of just running cat?
Great question. Anybody know why? Let's see what happens if we do that.
I tried it in the,
Ruby cat RB.
well, I gotta try finding that right in there, because we didn't tell it to.
Yeah, shoot, nothing happened. Finn nailed it though. It's because got to put a binding up pry in here. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, we also have to require pry. All right. So now, if I do that, run Ruby cat RB. Wow, that's the exact same thing. I can make Whiskers. Oh, I have Whiskers is a lot more going on now, though. Whiskers has a city and an age. Denver, 30. All right, I can do all the same stuff I was doing before. So the reason I don't want to do that is when I make owner RB and make class owner. Okay. Well, how do I do like owner.addCat or something like that? All right, well, maybe I'll put pry in that one also, and I'll maybe put it there. Or I take all of those out of there and then go over to my environment file and require an owner. The job of this file is to bring together all the different parts of our app so they can all see each other, and then we run this, and now we have access to all of it.
And that's like conventional like coding practice right there.
I would say for the kinds of Ruby apps that we're making right now, yeah. And there's like a similar idea in most languages. In JavaScript, it would be called an index.js file. In Rails, this is how it works, except you don't like Ruby environment RB. You do some extracted out command like Rails S that ends up running this. But at the whole, we call this a point of entry. This is the thing that marshals together all the different parts of the apps, and this is where the app starts. Other questions so far?
So if you wanna do anything involving multiple classes, you wanna do it in this.
You want to bring those classes together in here. And then these classes can see each other. Old Man Cobley thinks this is a terrible design. That's why I don't like OP. But if I was doing something like def add owner that takes in an owner or takes in a name or something like that, you would say, you could do something like owner equals owner.new like that. You can use the owner class inside of the cat class because the environment brought them all together. I think that's minorly confusing, but that's the case in Ruby and PHP and Java and basically everything. Once you've marshaled all these different classes together, they can all see each other and talk to each other and stuff. Other questions? Keep them coming.
So we created, obviously, like a new directory to do all of this stuff.
Mhm.
Can we just go back into the terminal and delete this directory?
Yeah.
We found it to be pointless.
Yeah. So to do that, we'd like go up and then rm-rf cat daycare, and that would blow out the entire thing. Every
Why RM-RF, not dash R? Is that the difference between like the one that asks you whether or not you want to do it?
That's a very good question, and no. If I do that, it'll go, I can't delete this, there's stuff in it.
Okay.
If I do that, the F is for force. It's like, I don't care, get rid of it anyway. The thing you're talking about is called interactive mode. So if I do that, it'll ask me if I'm sure on each file.
Got it.
Great question.
So RFI is just like a safer way to do it.
Yes. And actually, check this out. Come on. Cat. If I make some file and I RM it, it asks me every time anyway. And it's because deep down in like the guts of my terminal, I said every time I type RM, I actually want to type RM-I. And so it prompts me every time regardless. Yeah.
Is there a way to save what you've done in the terminal with the file so that you can look back and say, okay, well, I understand what I did in the file, but I don't know what commands I put to actually like go through that. Do you see what I mean?
Ooh.
I know you can save the terminal, but is there a way to combine the two of them without putting them in the same folder?
So I think this might be what you're talking about. You want to see all the different commands you've run?
Yeah, so I can be like, oh, I don't run binding.py, I just write pry every time.
So this is everything I've written in my terminal. It doesn't have everything I've written in Ruby. I don't think there's any like, oh, that might be somewhere.
Okay.
But I have no idea how to get to it. Let's see. Access binding.pry history. History file. Default is there. All right, cool. It's in your home directory .pry history. Let's see if that's true. So I vim dot no pry. It's not there though. So it might be because I'm using RVM. RVM pry history file. IRB history maybe? So this isn't that file, but this is what it would look like.
Okay.
If you could find it. You might have it. But yeah, you've got that and you can open it up in a text editor and whatever else.
Okay.
Cool. What else? Okay, one more thing I want to do. So we have the dog and the dog's properties, behavior. Interesting. So let's say I want to add behavior to the cat. So I'm going to make a new method. It's going to be called meow. And meow is going to put my name is at name. So now I can call mittens.meow and whiskers.meow, and it's going to look up the instance variable for each of those. Sick. Let's try it. Cool, so I make Whiskers. Whiskers, meow for me, yo. My name is Whiskers. All right, Mittens, what you got? Cat.new, Mittens. Mittens is from the city. It's kind of pretentious about it. Much younger than the wise, experienced Whiskers. Mittens, what's your meow sound like? My name is Mittens. I'm from the Lower East Side. Cool. We have combined state and behavior all together in one big old container. So we don't have to do cat 1 name, cat 2 age, any of that kind of shit. It all rides together in one bucket. And the things that it is and the things that it does also live in the same place. That is the nature of classes and objects. What's on your mind? Finn.
Just to clarify, state is the value of the properties.
Yep. State properties, variables, these all kind of refer to the same thing. They have like academic distinctions between when you would use which one when, but they're all talking about the same shit. Cool. What else?
Can I ask you a text editor question?
Yeah.
I have this bar that shows up on this side. Sometimes it's really long.
Yep.
I have no idea what it is or why it's there. How do you do it?
Cool. You don't want to get rid of it. It's for when a file is long. That's a preview of the entire file. So you can drag on that and get to a particular part of that file. It's a lot more accurate than just using a
So
scroll
if you have
bar.
like a gigantic messy data structure, you can just go, that's why I did that. Makes sense. Cool.
Great question. What else?
When you wanna access one of the dealies listed as attribute
Mhm.
computer, then you do the main name of the instance you just created, and then dot, and then whatever's after colon.
Whatever the symbol is, yeah.
Without the colon.
Correct.
Can you go back to your terminal one more time?
Mm-hmm.
Is there another syntax that you can use besides the dot meow? How you can call things using like a bracket as opposed to?
Yeah.
I meant mittens bracket meow as opposed to mittens.
Oh.
Are we getting into verbs and nouns there? Like verbs are dot whatever, and then bracket is.
Is that the thing?
No. So that's an outstanding question. The only thing we can do on a class instance is call its methods. We can't access its attributes directly, ever. That's why we were doing things like def name, name. Because I can't see at name. I can't do anything with it. I can't change it. I can't read it. I can't do shit. I can call a method called name that is allowed to return an instance variable. But I can't do anything with it directly.
I thought the whole point of not doing that was doing the attribute reader at the top.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. But all this does is make a method called name and a method called city and a method called age. But I can't read properties directly. I can only call methods. What else?
Can you give us an example of when you would actually use this in something that you're trying to do?
Yeah. I'll show you some real software. So I run an organization called Develop Denver. But among other things is a conference and some other shit. So this is our website. So this is JavaScript, but the idea is exactly the same. When somebody is submitting a talk, I have a talk class, and let's see if I have the properties listed on this. and then I have things like, all right, I want to be able to fetch every single talk. Every talk has a vote behavior, where if you're an attendee and you want to vote to see that talk, you call its vote method. And then you have to pass in a token, because that's like your thing that says like, oh, by the way, I'm not just nobody. I am registered for this conference. I'm allowed to vote. And so it takes in that token and then does magic with it. Unvote is another behavior of a talk. And then I don't know why it's not in here. Interesting. So the talk also has state like author, talk title, talk description, type of talk. Those are all states of the talk, and then I can do things like vote on them. That's a class.
So that would be a way that you make your website like more like something that the user works with.
Right. So then in the actual application, no, fuck you, Brian. This is the guy I was building this with. This is his. I don't think this counts as passive aggressive.
Aggressive.
But we're instantiating a new talk, and then we're passing something into it, and that kind of thing. So like in like actual professional software, that's us using classes. And then on the back end of that, which is probably a little bit closer to what we're doing now, a similar thing where, all right, an event, which could be a talk or a workshop or something like that. Constructor is the same thing as initialize. This is kind of like adder reader. These are the different properties that it has. And then the behaviors that it has is like I can find an event, I can list an event. Those are like examples of behaviors we can do. What's up, Toby?
Hi. I saw something I didn't know what it was.
Oh,
What is that?
that was the developed Denver source code.
Okay.
Cool. Does that answer your question about
Yes.
how we would use this in the real life?
Yeah.
Cool.
So one more time, the states would be like Denver, 30. Yeah.
All that counts as the state for the application. These are behaviors that it can take. Then when you're thinking about the application, like when I'm looking at our developed Denver app, vote, ticket, talk, schedule listing, unclaimed ticket, profile, event, nouns. These are the nouns in your application. And we're not ready to talk about this yet, but how do they relate to each other? What kind of actions can the nouns take on each other? What verbs do they have? Methods. And they can work across different classes. More questions? All right, so before we bounce, I want you to give a crack at defining class and object. I'm going to call on somebody, but I want you to think to yourself for a second. You're at a party. You're at a party with some really lame people. You go, hey, heard you're learning that object-oriented programming. Well, surely you know about classes and objects. Pop quiz. What's a class? What's an object? Think about what you're going to say. Ben, what are you going to say?
I said a class encapsulates groups of related items, but it's not an ordered list.
I like about 80% of that. Miriam, what you got?
I said that they encapsulate all the state behavior for certain items.
Yes. Cool. Then what you got?
A class is a template for an object including state and behavior.
I love that. That's real nice. What you got?
Class is a way to organize information based on various properties.
All right, very nice. Toby, how would you define classes and objects?
Oh, shit. I was.
Been a second, motherfucker.
I was definitely on the track of like a class is a template to create objects.
Yeah.
related to that class.
I like that.
That's where my head was at.
So the objects are really the things that are encapsulating the actual state, the actual behaviors. The classes are the blueprints for what those can look like.
What does encapsulate mean?
Sure. Encapsulate means.
Is it instantiate?
Nope, good guess. This is not encapsulated. We just have random ass variables all hanging around. If I can put them in a bucket called whiskers, I have encapsulated all of it together. And so yeah, instead of dog one name, dog one age, dog one city, if I just say dog one dot name dot age dot city. And furthermore, if I know that every single dog has a name, has an age, has a city, can bark, I have encapsulated all of those things together. I've defined what a dog is. And whenever I want to talk about Bixby or Whiskers or Mittens, Bixby's name and Bixby's age live right next to each other, not just as some free-floating variables. Because I wrapped them all into one package or encapsulated them. So Finn, explain that back to me.
Encapsulation takes values that are otherwise unrelated and categorizes them together so they can all be accessed efficiently.
Like that. Let's look at an academic definition. What is encapsulation in OOP?
Is that a picture of a pill? Because that's exactly how I did it.
Nice. Well, it's encapsule.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Hide the internal representation. Meh, 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 meh. Oh, come on, motherfucker. Can anybody just say it? There we go. Refers to the bundling of data with the methods that operate on that data, or the restricting of direct access to some of an object's components. So that's the pretentious way of saying it. Bundling data with the methods that operate on that data. Or bundling state and behavior. They get to ride together. The information hiding part of that, check this out. All right, now I can't do mittens.name. I can still do mittens.meow, and Mittens can say her name. I just can't access it directly. When and why you do that, that's beyond today. But that's the other half of that definition.
Do objects exist outside of classes?
Objects exist in your heart, baby. No, the definition of an object is an instance of a class.
Okay.
Seriously? But what if you design a hash without a class?
A hash is not an object. Now, where this gets really confusing is if you did any JavaScript stuff, especially in your pre-work, the way that they use the word object is interchangeable with how Ruby uses hashes. This is one of the very few times I'll say this, JavaScript is wrong. What JavaScript calls an object is a hash. JavaScript doesn't have objects.
Can you then tell me what an object is? Because I am from JavaScript.
Okay. An object is an instance of a class. JavaScript doesn't have classes. It has things that look like classes. It has things that kind of act like classes. Hell, it even has literally the class keyword. This is JavaScript. It's got a class keyword. Like, this is a way longer conversation. This is people who come from OOP backgrounds like Ruby, Java, PHP, really wanted this to exist, and so it got added to JavaScript to make them happy. I think that's probably the best way I can put it. But this is actually a function. Super academic rabbit hole, but JavaScript does not have objects or classes. All it has is functions. And what it calls objects are actually hashes, which makes it very confusing when you go to Ruby, because we have hashes and we have objects, and they have nothing to do with each other. A hash is just key value pairs. That's it. There's no template for a hash. I can't say, can you give me one of those cat hashes that looks like this, and make sure it has a name, and make sure it can meow and all that kind of stuff. The hashes aren't smart enough for that. Objects are, though. We can even have a hash as something that we have in here. So like, maybe this is, it has a hash for like favorites, and it has keys that are toys, and that stores an array of some other thing. So we can use hashes and store those as part of the state of an object. But the definition of an object is an instance of a class. JavaScript uses it wrong. I'll also say that I like the way that JavaScript does it way better. But that is a vocabulary misuse. And I'm sure Brendan Eich regrets doing it in the 10 days he made the JavaScript language in 25 years ago. Cool. What else?
Can I ask you an unrelated question?
Please.
Can you explain gems? Are they just like libraries in other languages? So what exactly does the no-go gearing do?
So yes, a gem is just somebody else's code
Okay.
that you can include in your project super duper easy.
Okay.
The no-go Geary is what's called a DOM parser.
Okay.
What it does, it makes it so you can work with HTML like it was a hash. And lots and lots and lots of gems depend on it. So I might say, yo, I just want such and such thing. I just want learn. Learn depends on this, which depends on this, which depends on this. And so Nokogiri always ends up being in there somewhere. And Nokogiri requires native extensions. Probably seen that before. Native extensions are, to make this is such an expensive fucking program to run that we actually go down a level. We do it custom for your computer-specific processor. A lot of this stuff is generic. It'll run the same on my computer, my Linux computer at home, any of those things. It doesn't care. If we need even more performance out of that, we have to use native extensions. So the reason you know that word, even though you've never used the Nokogiri package directly, is you install something like learn or whatever, and then when it gets to Nokogiri, it takes fucking ever to install those native extensions. That's why.
You know, like a good place, like for when we have like the free time in the afternoon,
Mhm.
where like you can say like, oh, I want practice like creating classes and practicing with those. Like, do you know any websites or anything? Or?
That's a good question. I can't think of one that'll.
We're popping up on the board, so if you need more time, take it.
Okay, cool. I can't think of anything that does that specifically. There's one website after another that's like, find an efficient way to reverse this string, and all that kind of shit. But the more practical things, like how would you define these objects and create these relationships between each other? Not really. Learn's probably your best bet.
Okay.
Cool.
On that same note,
Mhm.
we got a link yesterday for the Fire, whatever it is, Fire.
Yeah.
But then it asks for login, which seemingly does not work. But I looked at my Learn, and I like have access to now like a third thing, which is called whatever it is called.
Cool. That's the sixth time I've gotten asked that question today.
Sorry.
No, that means it's my fault. This, first of all, this has nothing to do with Learn. This is a thing that I made like in that room right over there. Zero integration with Learn at all, other than it links to some things from Learn. This is for staff, because here's what happens when you log in. So I go over here and awesome, I see all these cool links and shit. And when I log in, if I can remember the password that I made for myself. Oh, are you fucking kidding me? I don't remember how. I don't remember my password. Oh, that is too good.
Forgot password.
Oh, I think I made one for Damon. Oh shit! I locked out of my own app. Let's see. Is it just this? No. Oh fuck! It's all right. This is not actually that big a deal. Because then, like, what I do is I just turn off authentication and push that up, and then log in and
So I
fix my
find that
thing.
when I click on the links to like, learn something,
Yeah.
it just loads the whole page all over again.
Cool. That means that you're not on the right module in Learn. So if I go over here,
You click like erase caches, yep, can't do it. It doesn't load. Okay.
so that means that you're not in this thing. You're probably still like in your pre-work one or something.
So if I changed it to that,
Yeah, exactly. So you want to come on, man. This is why the system sucks. This is like all these ones that I'm in. You probably have two, and you probably want to be in the other one. All right, we can debug that later, but that's what's supposed to happen. When you log in, the thing you see is like you can add modules and add standards and delete resources, and that's what that's for.
okay.
Other questions? What's a class and what's an object? An object is a what? Careful with that. We're very, very careful with our vocabulary on that. It is an instance of a class. Component doesn't make up, or object doesn't make up a class, which is what component would be. And we have components, that's a separate thing. An object is an instance of a class. We can instantiate a class as an object.
So a class is a template for creating objects, and an object is an instance of a class, and it encapsulates a bundle of states.
He gets it. Beautiful. Awesome. Anything else you want to talk about? Hell yeah, thank you.